Hey, Dr. Mark Testa, Chief Health and Wellness Officer for Pine Pollen Superfoods and Train for Longevity. And in today's video, I want to talk about mTOR, or the mechanistic target of rapamycin. Now, if you like health and wellness tips like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel below. We'll keep sharing them, and I hope they're helpful. Now, mTOR has been in the news lately. It's been in the lexicon of health and wellness and fitness and mostly fasting people for a long time now. For the last several years, maybe it's a relatively new discovery in the 70s. And mammalian or mechanistic, it's changed, target of rapamycin is a nutrient sensor. Now, rapamycin was found on Easter Island in the 70s. It's a soil bacteria, and they found it but didn't know there was a target for it in our body, and that was, discovered after the rapamycin was discovered, that there was an actual target and that it actually did something. And so the mammalian target of rapamycin is, again, a nutrient sensor. It senses glucose, insulin, and protein, particularly the amino acids leucine and arginine. And depends who you read. I've read other things like methionine and maybe even creatinine. And so different things stimulate this. Now, when mTOR, or the mammalian target of rapamycin, is stimulated by these nutrients, it causes growth to occur. And insulin-like growth factor is one of the things that is stimulated, which is great when we're growing children and adolescents and growing into an adult body. But we don't want this constantly and overly stimulated to the point where it could potentially grow tumors. And there is some conversation and likely correlation with insulin-like growth factor and breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and prostate cancer. So people have sort of taken a different look at this, well, maybe we don't want to stimulate it all the time. Maybe stimulating mTOR with all these nutrients is a bad idea. And probably to some degree, it's right. But there's another side of mTOR that's involved in the immune system function. So it can't be just a black and white on-off switch. It's good, it's bad, because it's not. And if anything, the more I read about it, it's actually very, very complicated and very potentially confusing as to what we should be doing with mTOR. Should we stimulate it? Should we not stimulate it? Now, rapamycin, right, where this gets its name, it inhibits it. It inhibits its function. And rapamycin, or rapalogs, are drugs that have been developed after the discovery of the soil bacteria to basically shut down the immune system, and has been used in organ transplants, and it's been used, not so much anymore, with stent placement, so the body doesn't reject the stent in the coronary arteries. But they also found other issues with it. So it's back in sort of clinical testing. People are testing it for different things. Some people use low dose of rapamycin maybe once a week, experimenting on themselves for healthy longevity. Because when we fast, or when we calorie restrict, or even protein restrict, mTOR becomes inhibited. And in yeast, and in mice, and in monkeys, and in humans, it actually helps us generally live a better or a healthier longevity. We haven't been able to prove in humans that it actually extends life expectancy, but we see that there's healthier longevity, and we see it in the calorie-restricted studies in rhesus monkeys and in those other organisms I mentioned, and we see it in humans that may be living healthier, longer lives and dropping dead at 110 instead of suffering like most Americans from the time they're 50 until they drop dead. So mTOR inhibition for some things is good. Now, inhibition of mTOR is not always that good, again, because like I said, it controls the immune system. So it's not just an on-off switch. Now, as I mentioned, it's stimulated by protein, particularly animal protein more than plant protein, because animal protein is a complete, has a complete amino acid profile, and these arginine and leucine amino acids are in there, and so they stimulate it. So I was concerned, knowing what I knew about mTOR a few years ago, when I heard about the carnivore diet. I was like, oh my God, how can this possibly be healthy for people? Isn't it going to cause a lot of cancer? And subsequently, I've tried to listen to and keep an open mind around the carnivore diet, and it keeps coming back to the notion that pulsing mTOR prevents problems from occurring from a carnivore diet, meaning that you eat maybe in a 6 or 8 hour window and then you fast the rest of the time, allowing mTOR to down-regulate. So there's some thoughts around that as well. Again, mTOR not only involved in the immune system, but also involved in our liver creating new glucose from stored fat, known as gluconeogenesis. So it's got really important roles. We just don't want it stimulated constantly. Again, growing too much or potentially shortening a healthier lifespan, because we do know when it is inhibited periodically that it does create a healthier lifespan. And that again is with calorie restriction, it's with protein restriction, and it's really with limited glucose. So this is where intermittent fasting could play a big role in healthy longevity, and even periodic fasting or the fasting mimicking diet that can really has been shown to create healthy longevity preclinically. Now we're still testing that in humans, but we can see mTOR is just not an on-off situation. Now I'm going to do another video here about mTOR, so tune in for that. I look all puffy and nasty here today because we're having fires in Colorado and the smoke is just everywhere. Yesterday there were ashes falling out of the sky and I had to come in the house. It's been miserable, sneezing and such. So anyway, I hope you found this conversation about mTOR helpful. I'm going to put some links in the description of this video so you can follow along a little bit closer. It's just not an easy conversation where you shut it off, turn it on, and it's all good one way or the other. So I'll talk more about that in the next video. If you like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel below, and I'll see you in the next video.